Hey everybody, welcome back to the Senators Roundtable. I'm your host Jacob Billington, joined by Paul Quinney and Dayton Reimer as usual. I feel like it's been a long time since the three of us have been together, so I guess it's not as usual this time. But Dayton, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, it's nice to be back with the big group, I guess. So
Good. Paul, how are
it has
you?
been a little bit.
Hey, great. I'm cleaning out my basement. You'll never guess what I discovered. See that? That's
Oh,
the
that's
original.
awesome.
Yeah, that's going back, the original Peace Tower logo. And that's actually an away sweater there because it's black. But I Googled it. I did not know this. It was never worn during an NHL game. And apparently the rumor is when the league saw it, they said, no, not approved. So
See, I
anyway,
love that.
you never know what you get in your basement.
Awesome. So it's been a fantastic day for Ottawa Senators news. The past couple days really have been um, a whirlwind of emotions for Senators fans. But the biggest thing, without question, is Shane Pinto signing a 2 year deal at 3.75 million. He's going to stick around till he's 25 years old. Then he's got 1 year left of RFA rights, and then he'll have arbitration rights as well. Um, what are your thoughts on the deal? What are your thoughts on everything that happened leading up to the deal? There was rumors of a trade request that were shut down almost immediately. There were rumors of the Islanders maybe pitching a trade at him. I don't know. It was a bit of a mess for a couple days, and I feel like Shane Pinto just got to the point and said, "Let's just get this done. I'm tired of all this noise." That's how it feels to me. But Dayton, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a great deal. I think I saw it was 2.5 for this year and then 5 million for next year. I think that's a very fair kind of meet in the middle ground type of thing. I could see his next contract being upwards of that 5 million per season. So yeah, that's fine. The trade request was strange. I don't deny that there might have been something around. Um, Mainly just kind of comparing that to the Jakob Chychrun situation, where it was, oh no, he doesn't want to leave. He's great here. Everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I think he's tired of it because it just never went away. And I think that probably was being felt by Shane's camp. So to hear that maybe they were thinking of like, yeah, we don't want this anymore. I don't doubt that. But Steos, I think, did the right thing, quashed that really quickly. It's like, all right, let's put pen to paper. Let's get this over with.
Yeah, it was a very chaotic couple days in terms of Shane Pinto rumors. Paul, what are your thoughts on the signing, the rumors, everything?
Well, if you're Steve Staios, I think you're happy that you ended up here. Essentially what you have is a 2 year bridge deal. And in contrast to what I think Pierre Dorion would have done, is specifically hand out another 8x8. He used to hand those things out like candy. You know what? 2.5 million this year, 5 million next. That gives the organization a chance to size this kid up. Is he the real deal? From that standpoint, sure, I thought it was a good one. As for Louis Gross, his agent, I don't know what planet this guy's from. If you look at like, come on, Louis, what options did Pinto have here? He's not eligible for any arbitration whatsoever. And I laughed when I saw uh, his agent rather was trying to go out and get other teams to make an offer. That is just not going to happen in this league. I can't recall a situation where another team, with a restricted free agent, the likes of Pinto, actually made an offer. And if they did, I think what would they have to give up their first and third round pick? Well, I mean, come on, Steos didn't fall off a turnip truck. I don't know what he thought. He must have seen that coming a mile away. I don't know why Louis Gross, the agent, even bothered with it. Made him look amateurish.
Yeah, it was a common case of negotiating through the media from the agent, and you saw that. So, Louis Gross has a number of big ticket players in the NHL. He doesn't have a ton. He doesn't have a ton of NHL regular players, but just a couple of his biggest clients. William Nylander. ton of media negotiations with him. That's probably the most infamous case, really. Johnny Gaudreau, near the end of his contract, a lot of media negotiating. Torrey Krug, that's a good deal for Krug. He got him the bag there. He got Rasmus Sandin $4.6 million for 4 years, was it? I believe. I think that Louis Gross gets his players the money that they feel they deserve. Brandon Saad's in there too. Ross Colton, who just signed a big deal. There's a lot of contracts that Louis Gross is part of, and in most cases, he is negotiating through the media. Not surprised this is where it went at all.
Yeah. Didn't know that. So what do you think he's, in 2 years from now, what do you think Pinto is going to be worth? What's he going to be signing?
They're going to want to go long term because he'll only have one RFA year left. They'll want to get as much term as possible. I could see like a 5 or 6 year deal at 6.5 million. That's kind of where my prediction is right now. 2 years from today, obviously that could go way up, that could go way down. But if I'm to make a prediction today, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, congrats to Staios. He's got a deal here that is probably where he should be. 2-year bridge deal, and then we'll see.
Do you have any last thoughts on that date before we move on?
No, I think you guys kind of nailed it. The only thing I uncovered when I was writing a piece about Staios and some hirings was that he went to the Steve Yzerman School of GMing. So I don't think he's one to get pushed around. He's, he seems like he's a smart guy. I don't think he's made a ton of really substantial moves. There's been a couple. They've been great. Nothing really negative yet. I think he's willing to you either deal or you don't. And that's kind of how Yzerman does it. It worked well for Yzerman. I think Staios is following in that suit. So yeah, happy with it.
So we didn't get a chance to really talk about the Linus Ullmark trade on the show. Dayton, you and I covered it a little bit just when talking about the mock draft. But we didn't get to really talk about the trade as a whole. Do you have any quick thoughts on that? I feel like that's extremely old news, but it happened 4 days ago. I feel like that's in the distant past. But Paul, do you have any thoughts on the Linus Ullmark trade? Because it was Linus Ullmark for the 25th overall pick, who the Bruins used to select Dean Letourneau. It was a 3rd round pick, and it was Mark Kastelik. Sorry, not a 3rd round pick. Jonas Korpisalo. I have 3rd round pick on my mind that we're going to talk about later. What are your thoughts on the deal? Is it a good deal for Ottawa? Is it a home run? Is it just meh? What are your thoughts?
Well, the question I have is, where's the term? I hope they're not in a situation that they were in with DeBrincat and Tarasenko. I can't really blame Ullmark. If I'm him, okay, I'll come to a team that's not really a playoff contender, and I'll bide my time and see how they pan out for me. And if I don't like what I see, if they're not going in the right direction, then I'm gone. So the terms, with Korpisalo going and the Senators retaining a quarter of his salary, and what was the other? It was
Mark Kastelik.
Yeah, Kastelik. Yeah, I can't really quarrel with that. I thought they were on Korpisalo. That's about as good as you're going to do. I thought he was just untradeable. So on balance, had it not been for the questionable term, the questions associated with that, I'd say, yeah, good deal.
Dayton, what are your thoughts?
I think it was as good of a deal as you could have done for Ullmark. You got rid of Korpisalo, who was sort of weighing down the team with a really nasty contract and even worse numbers. It cost them a 1st round pick. Thankfully, the Bruins used it on Dean Letourneau, who is maybe the riskiest pick of the 1st round. That was a swing, and I hope he turns out. I have my doubts.
He's a Bruin, though. Like, you look at Dean Letourneau, and you look at him, and you say, he is a Bruin.
Oh, 100%. If anyone was going to take him, it was going to be Boston, because that's what it was going to do, right? I don't know. It made a lot of sense, but I still think it was a big swing. I'm sad to see Kastelik go. I liked him as a Senator, but he's a bottom 6 guy. He's replaceable, and I think he did well, but I think others will do just as well filling in. Yeah, and Ullmark should come in and stabilize a few things, but I'll beat my drum again. It's not the goalie's fault that the Senators were so bad. I think it's a whole structure, and thankfully there's a whole bunch of new coaches there, which should turn things around, and there's some new defensemen, which also should help turn things around.
Yeah, my quick thoughts on the Linus Ullmark trade is even if this is just a 1 year thing and Ullmark goes to unrestricted free agency next year, this trade is still a win for the Senators. Like a first round pick in Katchouk to move on from Jonas Korpisalo and get a year of a goaltender that won the Vezina a year ago. Like, I think that that's a great deal, even without an extension. Like, at this point, with what they gave up, obviously I would be a little bit upset to see him just walk because you have a fantastic goaltender coming into the organization. You don't want to just let him walk away. But if him walking away does happen, I don't think this trade ages very poorly.
Well,
Just
and
because it was. Go ahead, Paul.
no, I would think if he does walk away at the trade deadline, there's going to be substantial returns for him.
Yeah, and that's another great point. But I just think like, what's the value of 1 year of Linus Ullmark? Well, you would think we were talking about first round pick and Jakob Chychrun, and then you look at Jonas Korpisalo. What's the cost to dump him? Is it just Mark Kastelic? Absolutely not. So you're paying less than a first round pick worth of value for Linus Ullmark. So even if it's for 1 year, I'm totally fine with that. So moving on to another trade that the Ottawa Senators made. This one was Jakob Chychrun, who I just mentioned. So Jakob Chychrun goes to the Washington Capitals for Nick Jensen and a third-round draft pick. Not the value that Steve Staios was hoping he was going to get. I don't hate the trade at all. The value is not there, but I think the fit and the player type makes the trade make more sense than if you're just looking at, like, if you go in NHL 24 and plug in the players and look at the trade value bar, it's going to be very lopsided, I think. But I don't hate this trade as much as the value may present it to be a bad trade. What do you think, Dayton?
No, I like it. I think as much as Chychrun was good offensively, he was really struggling defensively with this team. And he just couldn't. Ooh. Not sure if you guys heard that, but we got a thunderstorm going on over in Saskatoon here. Just shook my entire upper floor here. Yeah, wow. Apologies. Yeah, so Chychrun hasn't been doing fantastic. He put up good points, but when he was paired with almost anyone else, he struggled. He didn't have that person that he could rely on to play that more defensive role. So to get a really solid defenseman from the Capitals in Nick Jensen and also a third round pick, I think is a pretty good win. Also, they save money, right? Nick Jensen's only making 4.05 million until 25-26. So they have him locked up longer than they do Chychrun, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Chychrun has 1 year left and Jensen has this year and next.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I started questioning myself. I've been a little iffy on some of my my stats lately. But no, I think it's a great deal. I really like Jensen. I think he's underrated. He can be a 30-point guy. He's only done it like once, but it's in his wheelhouse, so maybe he can do that with Ottawa too.
Yeah, he's a so he doesn't get credited with a ton of hits, but he is physical. He's going to knock you off the puck. He might not blow you up and get registered for a hit, but he is he's not afraid to play a physical game. And he blocks a ton of shots. He's going to be great for Jake Sanderson or Thomas Chabot, whoever's side he plays on. Probably going to be Chabot. And he blocks a ton of shots too, and he kills penalties. So I really like the deal as well. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I can't quarrel with it. I have to admit, it wasn't on my radar. I don't think it was on very many people's radar. It tells me that Staios lost the sweepstakes for Chris Tanev and Matt Roy out of Los Angeles. So, the market is what the market is. He can't go out and make these dream picks that everybody wants him to do. But he brings a lot of experience. He's 33. I think he's been in the league for 8 seasons and is Dayton was pointing out, he can score 30 points and, stay-at-home defenseman. He'll mind the barn and let Chabot, and I'm assuming I agree with you, he'll play with Chabot, let Chabot work his offensive magic.
Yeah, and Chabot really needs somebody like that. He's played a lot with Zub. He played with DeMello. That's about it. And he hasn't even been consistently with Zub. So it'll be really interesting to see how his game readapts to playing less minutes, playing with somebody that isn't Nikita Zaitsev, and playing just his game of hockey again. And again, like not playing 26, 27 minutes a night. There's a lot of hard miles on that body already. I think that there's more than enough reason to believe that he can go back to a really good two-way player and make his pairing more balanced, because obviously he was trying to do everything for the last number of years by himself. So one other trade that happened was Mathieu Joseph to the St. Louis Blues, along with a third-round pick for future considerations. We thought this would happen at this time last year. I wasn't ready for that to be the deal this year. What do you think, Paul? Is that, I don't know, what are your thoughts on the trade?
Well, it's a salary dump. They needed to do it to sign Pinto. I always chuckle when I hear future considerations. It means nothing is coming back.
Yeah.
So, but look, he was a disappointment. He was the basis of that Nick Paul trade. Tampa Bay got the better of that trade, and he never lived up to expectations. Time to go.
Dayton, what do you think?
Pretty much the same as Paul. It's he was a cap casualty, and the Senators had to take a loss for someone eating his cap, and that cost them a third-round pick, which was okay because they got one from Washington. So I think it kind of balances. You ship them out, you get some future considerations, and then.
Well, the other thing too is they were trying to move him going back into midwinter. Didn't get any takers, so it was they're lucky they got rid of him at that price.
Yeah, it's really interesting because people are saying, "Oh, Steve Staios, you did a terrible job with the Chychrun trade. You did a terrible job like paying assets to get rid of Mathieu Joseph. He's just cleaning up Pierre Dorion's disastrous mess that he left the organization, and that's all he's doing right now." So we are 184 days since Steve Staios has been named general manager. So just 6 months and then 3 days. There are only 13 players that played in Ottawa last year still on the roster. That's a lot of turnover. Like that's 7, 8 guys that are already moved on, and there's probably going to be a few more as well. You look at the roster, the ones that are still here are the key guys like Stützle, Katchouk, and Giroux, and Batherson. Like you're not getting rid of them. There's been a lot of turnover on this roster. So a couple of the players that were shipped out or not signed, at least, Eric Brannstrom, Parker Kelly, Boris Katchouk, whatever, Dominic Kubalik, and I believe that's it. Those are NHL players. Most of them are NHL players. But what are your thoughts on just some of these guys that got shipped out? Sorry, not shipped out. I have trades on the mind. Weren't qualified or just let go as UFAs. What do you think, Dayton, out of those names?
I always liked Brannstrom. I'm sad to see him go, but I also wrote a piece that he needed to go, and that was a while back. He wasn't going to work in Ottawa, and even if everything changed and they got, a brand new system for a plan, they kind of already screwed that up. That's not going to fix how Brannstrom is going to, work in Ottawa. It was a failed experiment, and unfortunately, it was a massive experiment to take on because it cost them Mark Stone. And that's always going to be one of Dorion's biggest legacies, is he shipped out a fan favorite for Eric Brannstrom, and you got nothing from it.
On his proudest day as a general manager.
Proudest day as a GM. Like,
I think that's my second favorite Dorion quote behind quote behind "We're a team."
Yeah. A guy for quotes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man. Some of the other ones, I like Parker Kelly. I like Boris Katchouk. Again, like a Kastelik, they're replaceable. They played bottom 6 minutes. They filled out well, but it's not like you can't find those guys who would be even better fits for potentially cheaper prices. Kubalik was always destined to leave. He just did not work in Ottawa, and that was kind of Dorian's last ditch effort to get something back from another horrendous trade. The dude could not trade, guys. Someone should have stopped him years ago.
Yeah, I think Dayton touches on a theme there. Fit in Ottawa, and the guys that left, there arguably wasn't a fit. I mean, Brannstrom, look, he's already got another job, right? He's signed with the Colorado Avalanche, so that tells you something. He just didn't fit in Ottawa. Another guy would be Kubalik. He certainly didn't gel in Ottawa at all. But then when you look at his performance in that World Hockey Championship in the spring, I mean, the guy led Czechia, right? So it's people to excel have to be there has to be a fit, and that was a problem with Brannstrom, Kubalik, and arguably Joseph as well. He was a good player in Tampa, didn't gel here.
Mathieu Joseph really hurts because how much better would this team be with Nick Paul? Like, I think that Nick Paul would be. I mean, how much better would they be? Maybe not much better, but much better than what Mathieu Joseph brought. That trade hurts.
What really hurts too is I do not, as I recall, there wasn't that much salary separating the Ottawa Senators and Nick Paul, right?
No, it was like 500,000.
Yeah.
That it? Oh,
yeah,
gross.
Yeah. So a couple names that came in. We already talked about Linus Ullmark and Nick Jensen. David Perron. So in the free agency recap that we did on the Hockey Writers YouTube channel, I said that the most surprising deal of the day was David Perron not signing with Ottawa, but signing with Ottawa. Like, the fit makes sense. The deal makes sense. David Perron in Ottawa does not make sense in my head after receiving a 6-game suspension for cross-checking Artem Zub in the side of the head last year.
It was him.
Yeah. The most surprising thing to me was, of the 31 teams, I wouldn't have been surprised with any team. Any team can use a David Perron. But there was only one team I was crossing off the list for potential suitors, and that was the Ottawa Senators, just for that. So I expect that David Perron is going to buy Zub a Rolex in the coming months. What do you think of the signing outside of that, Dayton?
So I keep thinking that David Perron is done. And okay, he's getting older. He's 36 right now. He can't keep going at the same pace. And then he does. He keeps doing, he's consistent as all get out. He goes to St. Louis, puts up 60 points in 2019-20. And then he goes to Detroit in 22-23 and puts up 56 points. He doesn't seem to age. So I think it could be actually a fantastic fit for the Senators, who need a guy who can slot into that top 6 and kind of solidify things, make things a little bit stronger, especially in that third line. You can bump some guys down, make that a really strong line. Yeah, I think it's maybe not the sexiest of signings, but I think it could have some really big results.
Yeah, he took a little bit of a step back this year with only 17 goals and 47 points. But for $4 million, you take that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
But so did the Red Wings.
Yeah, exactly. And they had a ton of moving pieces. They had a ton of young players they were trying to get into the top 6. And you see a lot of Red Wings fans saying that his game fell off at the end of the season. He wasn't even in their top 6 spot at the end of the year. Yeah, that's because they were just elevating the young guys that they had once the season was, especially at the tail end when they were losing a lot. They just put some young guys up there. So yeah, I like it. One really cool fact. So this is going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 7th, 8th team that David Perron plays for. Ottawa is only the second team outside of St. Louis that he has signed a contract with, which is insane to me. Like Detroit last year was the second team he's ever signed a contract with. And that blows my mind because he's played for Edmonton, Pittsburgh, Anaheim, Vegas, and the Blues, of course. And last year was the first time he signed a contract not in St. Louis. But yeah, that was just kind of a fun tidbit I learned. Paul, what are your thoughts on the signing?
Well, just really quick, I think Staios is doing what he said he would do, and that is bring in veteran experience, which the club desperately needs. And here you've got a 17-year vet in the NHL who has, by the way, won a Stanley Cup in 2019 with St. Louis. So I think some of that DNA could insert itself into the Ottawa Senators. Good move.
Are there any Cup champions on Ottawa except for Perron? I don't think so.
Well, another one will be Amadio, right?
Oh, yes, Michael Amadio. Yes.
So they got two, so which is what Staios said he was going to do, bring in some quality veteran experience. I think he's done it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Amadio signing?
He's can score 30 points a year, right? Looking at his history, nothing flashy. Won a cup with Vegas. If I've got this right, I think he scored 10 points in 16 games. That's not too bad for a journeyman left winger. So I think, he's a solid bottom six guy, and that's what's required here. Solidify that bottom six and try to get their scoring up. If I recall the stat correctly, I calculated it. I think the bottom six only scored about 5% of the Senators' points last season. So you got to have more than that to win in this league.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And I will add Nick Jensen won the Stanley Cup in 2018 as well. So they added 3 Stanley Cup champions yesterday. Dayton, what are your thoughts on Amadio?
Yeah, I like him. I think, I was mentioning that Katchouk, Kelly, those guys, are sad to see leave, but you can find better replacements for them. I think that's Amadio. He is a better replacement than both of those guys, and he's essentially taking over for them in the third or fourth line. So no complaints. Contract's maybe a little bit higher than I would have liked, but I think it's worth what he brings to the team. He had, in case anyone forgot, 10 points in 16 playoff games in 2023, which is wild for a bottom six forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I remember him playing a lot more than just 5 games with Ottawa, but I guess I'm wrong. He only has 5 games with Ottawa that year that he was claimed off waivers, but I don't know. I remember like a 25 game stint or something. I remember being really impressed by him, but I don't know. But yeah, he's a really good defensive bottom six winger. He's great in his own end, and obviously he can chip in the 25, 30 points. Again, like you said, Dayton, 2.6 is a bit high for my taste. I would have been happier around like 1.7, 1.8. But you know what? I have nothing to complain about with that deal. We can just throw these two in together. Noah Gregor and Adam Gaudette. The hockey god is back. What are your thoughts on those two signings? I mean, they're both going to be 13th forwards, maybe see some AHL time, I hope is the expectation, not to fill in the second line left wing spot. I sure hope. But what are your thoughts on the signings, Dayton?
Great. Noah Gregor was a strong bottom six forward with the Leafs. He's won at least a WHL title back with the Prince Albert Raiders in 2019. Yeah, he's good. I like him. Adam Gaudette. Yep, great. Is this his second stint? Yep, second stint with the Senators. We know he kind of fits, and he's been a great AHL producer. I'd imagine he kind of returns to that. Maybe pairing up with Garrett Pilon. I don't know. Yeah, they're good. Great. Love to have them.
I will add, just you mentioned Garrett Pilon and the Belleville Senators. They made a ton of really nice signings today. Or the last 2 days, I guess. Philip Ruse, I like that addition. Again, Adam Gaudette probably going to be in the AHL, but they just made a ton of signings that I'm a huge fan of.
Michael Simpson
Gaudette,
was a good signing a little earlier.
yes. He's the goaltender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the London Knights.
Yes. I'm confused where they think he's going to play because outside of the NHL, they have Sogard, Mandolese, Miralainen, and maybe that's it. Maybe they only have 3. So yeah, that is a good signing. I was just concerned about the room, but the 4 goalies to play between the ECHL and the AHL is fine with me. Gaudette did score 71 points and 44 goals in 67 games in the AHL this year. Fantastic. I love the signing. What are your thoughts on Gregor and Gaudette, Paul?
Just 2 quick points with Gregor. Neither the San Jose Sharks nor the Toronto Maple Leafs made a qualifying offer. Is that a point of concern? Like, I don't know the guy, but wow, 2 teams he played for and has substantial seasons with him. I think 221 games. They couldn't see their way through to making him a qualifying offer. And then with Gaudette, yeah, that guy, if I've got this right, I mean, you mentioned his points total in the AHL. Did he not lead the AHL in points last season?
I'm not sure. I can look it up though.
He's racked up a lot of points, and Belleville, they needed to do something with Schmeichel gone, Larson gone, Lassie Thompson gone. They kind of had to do something with that roster to
He was
replenish it.
third. He was third in points behind Maverick Bork and Rocco Grimaldi. I don't know how Rocco Grimaldi is second in league scoring in the AHL. But yeah,
He
was
lights
third.
it up in the minors. He's
He
great.
does.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there any last thoughts that you had on Gaudette, Gregor?
Gaudette, don't want to read too much into it, but in Vancouver, he did play for Travis Green. Does that give him an edge? Could he fight his way onto the roster? Well, that's something bearing some scrutiny in the upcoming training camp.
That's a good pull. He did play for him, so it will be really interesting to watch, see if he gets some favoritism or not. And then as for Noah Gregor, I'll just add a final comment here. I think that he has the opportunity to become a bottom 6 forward in Ottawa. I mean, he even spent time on the top line in Toronto last year when they were kind of shuffling some lines. He's extremely speedy. He has a lot of skill. He just hasn't been able to start producing. And again, like he's not a top line player. He's not a top 6 player, but he is versatile and he can fill in when needed. Like let's say Claude Giroux is out for the rest of the game. You're probably going to put Noah Gregor up there just because he's one of the few depth players that Ottawa has that can keep up with Tim Stützle and Brady Katchouk and just help develop offense, right? Like he's not going to be on the score sheet, but he can be impactful. You just don't want him up there consistently.
Well, one thing I'm going to be paying attention to as the summer unfolds is I think the Senators have got about 1.9 million in remaining cap space. So do you go out and sign another veteran, or do you make it so that at training camp there's an opportunity for maybe 1 or 2 guys to play their way onto the roster? Because there are 6 forwards there that have a shot. I'm thinking here of Crookshank, Stapchuk, Sokolov. They've given him a qualifying offer. So I don't know. What do you do for your Steos? Do you give some hope to your prospects down in Belleville?
I think so, but Sokolov's going to be gone. He's getting traded. And Bruce Garriock reported that as well, that he's not going to be in Ottawa come the training camp. But yeah, and even on defense, like, do you give Matt and Palo a look? Do you give Stephen Halliday a look? Maxence Gounet? You need to leave a couple bucks to bring players up. And right now, if Ottawa signs one more player and they have to keep Travis Hamonic on the roster, they're not going to have room to call up players. So, yeah, the Ottawa Senators should be done unless they're making trades because they just don't have the money to keep going.
Yeah, the Senators don't need to put themselves in that position again. That was that was a nightmare last season.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for checking us out this week. A lot of free agency talks, a lot of trade talks, hopefully a lot more to come, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.